Have you ever thought about a law that gives nearly a billion people the legal right to food? Well, that's not some hypothetical idea. It's the reality of India's National Food Security Act of 2013. We're talking about one of the most ambitious social welfare laws anywhere on the planet.
And to really get our heads around this, let's start right there, with that core question. What if getting food wasn't about someone's kindness or a government handout, but was actually your legal right, something you were entitled to, just like any other fundamental right? That, right there, is the revolutionary idea at the heart of this entire act.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to unpack this massive idea by first understanding what makes it so revolutionary. Then we'll look at the sheer scale of who it covers, dig into exactly what benefits people get, see how this giant operation is managed, and finally, look at the legal teeth that make this a guaranteed right.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, a revolutionary right. The subtitle here really says it all. This was a shift from a welfare mindset to one of legal entitlement.
So what's the big deal here? Well, before this act, government food programs were basically seen as charity. The National Food Security Act, or NFSA, completely flipped that script. It created a legal duty for the government to provide food, turning people from passive beneficiaries into active rights holders. That is a huge shift in thinking.
So now that we've got the what, let's talk about the who. And believe me, when we talk about who this act covers, the scale is just staggering. It's really hard to wrap your mind around.
Just look at this. The act aims for massive coverage. We're talking up to 75% of India's entire rural population and 50% of its urban population. Let those numbers sink in for a second. This isn't some small targeted program. It's a nationwide safety net on an epic scale.
And what do those percentages mean in real numbers? Well, it's roughly 80 crore. That's 800 million people. To put that into perspective, this one law covers about 2/3 of India's population. It's easily one of the largest food security programs in human history.
Now, the act isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. It breaks people into two main groups. First, you have what are called Antyodaya Anna Yojana households. This targets the absolute poorest of the poor, and they get a fixed 35 kilograms of food grains per family every month. Then you have the much larger group, the priority households, and they're entitled to 5 kilograms per person per month. So we know who's covered, but what do they actually get? Let's take a look inside this safety net, because as you're about to see, it's about a lot more than just cheap grains.
Okay, the foundation of the whole thing is, of course, the food grains. And the prices are incredibly low. We're talking 3 rupees for a kilo of rice, 2 rupees for wheat, and just 1 rupee for coarse grains. I mean, these prices make sure that affordability is just not a barrier to basic food for hundreds of millions of people.
But the Act's vision goes way beyond that. It takes what's called a life cycle approach, giving support at the most crucial stages of life. Kids from 6 months all the way up to 14 years old get free, nutritious meals through other big programs. Pregnant women and new moms also get free meals. And on top of that, new mothers are entitled to a cash benefit of at least 6,000 rupees to help make sure they can get the nutrition they need for themselves and their baby.
And check this out. The Act includes this really important detail aimed at empowering women. It actually requires that the ration card, the document you need to get all these benefits, has to be issued in the name of the eldest woman in the household. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It gives women real, tangible control over their family's food security.
All right, a program of this magnitude, it requires incredible coordination, right? So that brings us to our next section, a shared responsibility. How does this whole system actually work on the ground?
Well, think of it as a joint effort. The central government handles the big picture logistics. They get all the food grains, figure out how much each state needs, and then transport it to state-level storage. Then it's like a handoff. The state governments take over for that critical last mile. They're the ones identifying the families who are eligible, issuing the ration cards, and making sure the food actually gets distributed through that massive network of local, fair-price shops. And that brings us to our final, and maybe the most important section, the legal guarantee. What happens if the system messes up? What gives this whole thing its teeth? This right here. This is the key. The Act has a built-in accountability system. The law itself says that if a person doesn't get their food, they are legally entitled to get a food security allowance, which is basically a cash payment from the state government. So if the food isn't delivered, the government is legally on the hook to compensate you. That's what makes it a real right. And so, we're left with this. The National Food Security Act is, without a doubt, a landmark law, writing food into the books as a legal right on a scale we've never seen before. But the question it leaves us with is immense. Because making something a legal right is one thing. What does it actually take, day in and day out, to build and run the massive logistical machine needed to deliver that right to over 800 million people? That is the challenge that continues today.